The wind howled like a wounded beast, scraping across the snow-covered plain and rattling the thin, frost-bitten canvas of the soldiers' tents. Winter had come early that year, not the gentle snowfall of winter holidays, but a monstrous cold that wrapped Europe with a hunger fiercer than war itself. Liam Harwood sat at the edge of his bunk, hands shaking as he held a pencil over a wrinkled sheet of paper. He squinted beneath the dim flicker of a kerosene lantern, fighting the sting of the icy air against his fingers. Every exhale formed a small silver cloud in front of his lips. The sounds of distant artillery felt like thunder buried beneath miles of gray sky. Still, he wrote. Dear Mother and Elise. The snow here never ends. It covers the world like a white coffin, and every morning we wake up wondering if the cold will claim us before the enemy does. But don't worry. I'm strong. I promised you I would come home, and I hold that promise close to my heart every night. His words blurred for a moment as he paused, closing his eyes. He pictured home, a tiny wooden cottage at the edge of a wheat field. In the summer, butterflies danced over golden stalks, and in autumn, the earth smelled of rain and fresh bread. His mother would hum softly while preparing stew, and his little sister Lena would chase chickens around the yard, giggling without care. But those memories felt distant now, trapped behind a wall of snow he couldn't break through. He continued writing. I know life is difficult for you both. The village must be so cold this winter. I wish I could chop wood for the stove the way I always did. But soon this will end, and I will walk through our front door like I never left. Liam stopped again. His eyes flicked toward the flap of the tent. Outside, muffled footsteps crunched in the snow. A soldier cursed under his breath. A whip of wind cut through everything. Liam knew every man stationed here shared the same fear, not of bullets, not of cannons, but of freezing before dawn. He folded the unfinished letter carefully, pressing it to his chest for warmth instead of emotion. He would finish it when he felt stronger. When hope didn't feel like a luxury. The lantern sputtered, its flame trembling. That time of night, Harwood, a voice muttered from the nearby bunk. Private Rowan Hughes, broad-shouldered but worn down, pulled his coat tighter around his neck. His beard was frozen into small white crystals. Riding home, Liam replied softly. Ah, the old anchor. Rowan smiled weakly. Good. Keep writing. Reminds you you're still human. A cynical chuckle escaped the soldier 2 beds down. Human, he scoffed. Out here we're ghosts before we're dead. Liam didn't respond. He knew some soldiers had stopped writing days or weeks ago, afraid that any message home would become a cruel keepsake, a gravestone on paper. He had vowed never to let his heart freeze that way. The tent flap burst open. Cold exploded inside as a gust of snow followed the tall figure stepping through. Sergeant Oliver Grant, eyes sharp as a hawk's, shoulders framed in frost, scanned the room. Battalion briefing in 10 minutes, he barked. Full winter gear. Frontline post has gone silent, we're checking it out. Groans spread like ripples across the bunks. Rowan whispered, no rest, no warmth, what's the point of a tent anyway? Liam stood, sliding the letter into his coat over his heart, a shield made of ink and hope. Outside, the world was white. Nothing but white, sky, ground, horizon, all swallowed by the storm. Snowflakes whipped sideways, stinging exposed skin like tiny knives. Boots sank deep into drifts that reached the knees. It was like walking through a frozen sea. The soldiers moved in a line, rifles slung over their shoulders, breaths sharp and shaky. Liam gripped his pack tighter as he staggered forward. The cold gnawed through wool and leather until even bones felt brittle. There was a time, Rowan shouted over the wind, when I thought winter was beautiful. What happened? Liam yelled back, half laughing. War. Rowan snapped. War ruined everything. The group pressed on. Liam tried not to think about how his fingers no longer felt like his own. The sky above seemed heavy, as if at any moment it could fall on them. The world felt as though it would never know sunlight again. Then, a sound. A faint groan of wood. A creaking, like something shifting under the ice. Sergeant Grant raised a fist, signaling the group to halt. "Listen," he commanded. "Silence." "No, not silence. They're voices. Weak ones. Crying out from ahead. Help. Here. We're trapped." Liam's pulse surged. He rushed ahead, ignoring Sergeant Grant's yell to wait. He sprinted through deeper snow until he reached a collapse of timber and broken sandbags. A section of trench, buried by the storm. He dropped to his knees and started digging with his gloved hands. Cold packed under his fingernails. Rowan arrived beside him, using his shovel. The others followed. Beneath the rubble, soldiers. 3 of them, buried waist-deep, faces pale as if carved from ice. Their uniforms were crusted with frost. They trembled uncontrollably. "We can't feel our legs," one whispered, tears frozen on his lashes. "We've got you," Liam said, voice firm despite the fear clawing at his throat. The rescue was slow. Every second felt like an hour. The snowstorm roared stronger, like it resented their attempt to steal back what it had already claimed. But eventually, one by one, the trapped soldiers were freed. Sergeant Grant guided them toward the aid station. "You boys did good," the sergeant muttered to Liam and Rowan. But even through the compliment, Liam saw exhaustion in his eyes. Everyone was fighting 2 wars, one against the enemy, and one against nature itself. As they trudged back toward camp, Liam realized something. He had barely noticed the cold during the rescue. He had been too focused on saving lives. Purpose warmed him, if only a little. Then it struck him like a distant bell. If he could survive this storm, survive this war, everything afterward would feel like spring. But he wasn't naive. He knew the storm wasn't done with them. Back at camp, the rescued soldiers were carried into the medical tent. Liam followed, wanting to make sure they survived the night. The interior was filled with groans and the sharp smell of antiseptic. A nurse, wrapped in an extra scarf, hurried between beds. She noticed him, eyes clear and kind despite the harsh surroundings. "Were you out there helping them?" she asked, grabbing a bowl of warm water. "Yes," Liam said shyly. "Are they going to be all right?" With enough warmth and rest, she replied, dipping cloth strips into the bowl. "Frostbite is terrible this season. We've run out of gloves, boots, nearly anything that might keep death away." Her hands were steady, but her voice carried fatigue that went deeper than her bones. Liam wanted to ask her name, but she rushed toward the patients before he could. He stood there a moment longer, then stepped back into the freezing air. The night was darker now. Snowflakes thicker. The cold sharper. Liam curled inside his coat and walked to the edge of camp, where barbed wire coiled like frozen snakes. Beyond that twisted boundary lay the white unknown. The enemy. The war. He pulled out his unfinished letter. "I will come home," he whispered aloud. His breath drifted upward and vanished, like so many soldiers' promises. But Liam was stubborn. Hope was the only warm thing left. Later, after being ordered to rest, Liam lay awake in the dim tent. The rescued soldiers' cries replayed in his mind. He pictured his mother shivering in a cold house, struggling to stretch a bag of potatoes through the month. He pictured little Lena wrapping herself in blankets, dreaming of spring while frost crept up the windows. He clenched his fists under his blanket. "This war has to end," he murmured. Rowan snorted from the bed beside his. "And you're going to end it yourself, hero?" he said with a tired smile. Liam didn't answer. His dreams weren't about glory or medals. They were about walking home with his boots on solid ground instead of sinking into snow. They were about never seeing another soul freeze to death. They were about warmth, simple warmth, returning to the world. Somewhere outside, a wolf howled. Or maybe it was just the wind. Sleep finally pulled him under, a restless, uneasy sleep filled with visions. He saw his house again but buried in snow up to the roof. He saw his mother knocking on ice-covered walls, calling his name. He tried to run toward her, but his legs wouldn't move. Then, the sound of artillery. The earth split open. Flames against white. His mother and sister vanished into the storm. He shouted, reaching out. And snapped awake, heart pounding. The lantern in the tent was almost completely out now. Only a faint glow remained, flickering like a heartbeat on the brink of stopping. He pressed a hand over his coat pocket, feeling the folded paper there. As long as I can write to them. I'm still alive. The storm outside intensified, shaking the tent poles. Men shifted in their sleep, searching for warmth that didn't exist. Morning would come soon. Or maybe it wouldn't. The sky hid time well during war. But Liam would rise again. He would march again. He would write again. Because somewhere far away, there was a small cottage waiting. A mother waiting. A little girl waiting. He refused to become just another frozen memory. He closed his eyes, whispering a promise into the cold. I will come home. No matter how long the winter lasts. And the storm, uncaring and relentless, continued to roar. Morning arrived, though no one would have known if not for the muffled shout of officers and the uneasy stirring of soldiers. The sky remained the same blank, relentless white as the night before. Snow continued falling in thick sheets, erasing footprints and devouring the world inch by inch. Liam pulled himself from his bunk with effort. His bones ached from the cold, and when he touched his boot, he could not tell whether the leather was stiff or his fingers simply numb. The tent smelled of damp wool and breath exhausted by fear. Rowan sat upright, trying to lace his boots with trembling hands. Another fine winter morning in paradise, he muttered, forcing a crooked grin. Liam returned a weak smile, but neither found strength for laughter. Not today. A horn blared through the camp. All units, prepare for movement. Sergeant Grant's voice thundered outside. Frontline relief and reconnaissance. This is not a drill. A collective groan rippled through the camp. No one wanted to return to the trenches buried under snow. But orders were orders. The snow had deepened overnight, waist-high in places. Marching felt like dragging their legs through cement. The soldiers trudged onward, rifles pressed tight to chests, breath spilling into the freezing air like ghosts fleeing their lungs. Liam counted his steps. Each one felt like a victory that death would prefer he didn't have. Rowan fell into step beside him, whispering under the whistle of the wind. I heard the enemy is starving too. Rumor says they steal bread from their own dead. Liam didn't answer. Some rumors were too real to joke about. Further ahead, Sergeant Grant barked orders, his figure a dark shape swallowed by snowfall. Keep formation. Watch for weak ground. The snow covers craters, break a leg and you're done. The soldiers kept close. Fear of the unseen gnawed at them harder than hunger. After what felt like hours, the white haze parted enough for them to see it, the forward trench line. Or what was left of it. The wooden support walls were splintered and caved in. Sandbags lay scattered like broken teeth. Rifles stuck out of the snow, some still gripped by frozen hands. One soldier whispered a prayer. Another quietly retched. Liam stared at the scene. A terrible silence filled the trench, no voices, no groans, not even the whimper of a dying man. Just snow. Snow, claiming everything. Sergeant Grant motioned downward. We secure this position. Then we investigate. The men slid into the trench, boots crunching through layers of ice. The cold there was different, it felt alive, creeping deeper, hunting for the heart. A broken helmet lay nearby, half buried. Liam bent to pick it up. Inside, strands of hair. A bit of frozen blood. He nearly dropped it, stomach twisting. Rowan placed a hand on his shoulder. Hey. Look at me. Don't drown in this. Liam nodded, swallowing hard. But fear settled inside him like a second winter. Suddenly. Crack. A sniper's bullet slammed into the wall inches from Liam's face, spraying splinters. Sniper. Down. Grant roared, pushing soldiers flat into the snow-packed floor. Another bullet whistled overhead. Rowan cursed. Damn it, they're watching us. The trench wasn't only a graveyard, it was bait. Smoke grenades. Grant ordered. Cover the flank. 2 soldiers fumbled with canisters, hands nearly too numb to pull the pins. Smoke poured upward, swallowing the sky in a gray curtain. Move. Move. We need new cover, the sergeant boomed. They scrambled forward through the trench as bullets tore into the wooden boards behind them. Snow exploded around them like bursting powder. Liam's heart hammered as he ran. He kept his head low, feet slipping on ice. Around a bend, they found another sight, bodies. Their own regiment's scouts, frozen together in grotesque shapes, eyes open, snow caked on lashes, rifles still aimed at the direction of death. One held a photograph pressed against his chest, a woman smiling in front of a sunflower field. Liam's breath caught. That could be any of them. It could be him. Take their ammo, Grant commanded, voice low. We'll give them proper honor later. Rowan whispered, we're so close to being them. Liam glanced once more at the fallen scout. He forced himself to move. To hesitate was to freeze, inside and out. They pushed onward until the smoke fully shielded the view of the enemy. The sniper fire ceased. But fear remained, now quieter, deeper. Hours passed, and they secured what remained of the trench. It wasn't a victory, just survival. Barely. A new group arrived to reinforce the position, bringing word that the enemy had set up a hidden outpost just beyond a frozen ridge. Tonight, they were to advance and scout it. Hope became even thinner than the air they breathed. As evening fell, the soldiers retreated temporarily to a narrow bunker for warmth, if it could be called warmth. A rusty stove struggled to push heat into the cramped space. The ceiling dripped melted snow onto helmets. Liam sat near the stove, hands hovering over faint sparks of heat. Rowan leaned against a wall, eyes closed. Across the bunker, the nurse from the medical tent entered, carrying a bag of supplies. She looked even more exhausted in the dim light, scarf sagging around her neck, hair cold damp from the storm. She tended to frostbite wounds, checked bandages, and offered hot broth to those shaking too violently to feed themselves. When she finished, she came to Liam and Rowan. You two were part of the rescue yesterday, right? She asked. Liam nodded. Rowan simply raised his fingers in a lazy salute. Thank you, she said genuinely. Those men will see another sunrise because of you. Liam felt warmth coil inside him, not from the stove, but from her words. What's your name? He asked. Elise, she replied with a tired but soft smile. Elise Laurent. Rowan nudged Liam with his elbow. Liam blushed slightly under Elise's curious gaze. You should rest, both of you, she said. Tonight will be harder than today. Her tone chilled Liam more than the wind outside. As she walked away, Rowan leaned close. She's right, you know. About what? Liam asked. That tonight might kill us, Rowan whispered bluntly. Liam stared at the stove flame, tiny and fragile. I won't die here, he said quietly. I won't become another body buried in snow. Rowan gave him a tired laugh. Hold on to that, Harwood. Hope keeps the blood moving. They sat in silence, each lost in their thoughts. Night arrived fast. The blizzard thinned but didn't stop, snow still swirling like restless spirits. The moon hid behind clouds, giving the night a dull, eerie glow. Sergeant Grant assembled the men outside the bunker, map in hand. Listen up. There's a ridge half a mile east. Our scouts say the enemy has a lookout post there. We sneak close. Identify numbers. We do not engage unless absolutely necessary. We get back alive. Understood? A chorus of weary yes, sir answered him. Liam checked his rifle. His gloved hand shook. Fear? Cold? Both. Rowan slapped his shoulder lightly. If we don't die tonight, I'm stealing the sergeant's whiskey ration. Don't let him hear you, Liam muttered, but the joke eased his chest a little. They moved quietly into the darkness, footsteps muffled by fresh snow. Every crunch sounded too loud. Liam imagined eyes watching from every shadow. Ahead loomed the ridge, jagged rocks draped in ice like the teeth of a frozen beast. They crouched low. Slowly, carefully, they climbed. At the top, Sergeant Grant signaled for silence. They crawled forward and peered over the ridge. Below, enemy soldiers huddled near a flickering fire, rifles resting within reach. A small radio crackled beside them. They weren't many. 6? 7? But their presence was a threat. They were close enough to strike the trench at dawn. Grant whispered, "We fall back. Report the position." Then, a soft crunch behind them. Liam's heart seized. A slip? A rock? Or a bullet screamed past, striking snow inches from Rowan. The enemy had spotted movement. "Scatter! Retreat!" Grant shouted. Gunfire erupted. Liam sprinted downslope, snow spraying behind him. Rowan stumbled, grabbing Liam's arm. They tumbled together, rolling hard until they hit the bottom. Shots continued, echoing through the white night. Grant fired back, yelling orders lost in the chaos. The storm swallowed sound and sight, turning friend and foe into shadows. Liam crawled behind a fallen tree trunk. Rowan collapsed beside him, gasping. "You good?" Liam yelled. "Don't, no," Rowan wheezed. Blood stained his glove, a bullet grazed his arm. "No, no, keep pressure on it," Liam urged, pressing Rowan's hand harder on the wound. He peeked out, muzzle flashes glinted in the dark. The enemy advanced cautiously, rifles raised. Liam raised his weapon. He didn't want to shoot. But he also didn't want to die. He fired once. Twice. The recoil kicked into his shoulder each time. A figure dropped. Another stumbled. Rowan panted, "Nicely done, farmer boy." "Shut up," Liam breathed, scanning desperately for more. Grant's voice rang out through the storm, "Fall back to the trench." "Move." Liam hauled Rowan up, slinging Rowan's arm across his shoulders. "Come on," he shouted. The two ran through the blizzard, boots slipping, breaths burning. Snow clung to their faces like claws. Behind them, the gunfire faded. But fear didn't. They stumbled into the trench at last. Soldiers rushed to assist Rowan, carrying him to Elise. She worked quickly, cleaning the wound, wrapping fresh bandages. "You were lucky," she said. "Another inch and you'd have lost the arm." Rowan smirked weakly. "Don't worry, nurse. I still need it." Elise rolled her eyes, but when she turned, Liam saw relief soften her expression. Sergeant Grant addressed the unit, voice steady but heavy. "We hold this line. Reinforcements arrive tomorrow. Tonight, no one sleeps." Groans filled the trench. Liam sat beside Rowan, who had already started dozing from exhaustion and the sting of medicine. Snowflakes landed on Liam's eyelashes. He blinked them away, staring at the sky, the same empty void as before. He could still hear the gunfire in his head. Each shot a reminder that death was never far. He reached inside his coat and took out his letter again. He read the unfinished words, the ink slightly smudged from earlier frost. "I will come home." He whispered it again, more firmly. "I will come home." But the trench felt colder now. The snow deeper. The night longer. Hope flickered inside him like a candle in the wind. He clutched the letter close, eyes burning with tiredness. Somewhere behind him, Elise was quietly humming, a soft tune, trembling but beautiful. A lullaby for soldiers who might not see sunrise. It made Liam's chest ache. He closed his eyes for just a moment, letting the sound drift through him like warmth. The storm kept raging, but for that small moment, Liam felt alive. And he held on to that. Because tomorrow, the war would ask for more. Snowstorms had no mercy on the cities either. While soldiers bled on the frozen front, families across Europe fought their own war, against emptiness, hunger, and fear that crept like frost into every home. In a small village far from the thunder of cannons, a chimney struggled to release smoke into the biting wind. The Harwood house, 2 cramped rooms, a leaky roof, and walls that groaned with every gust, stood like a stubborn survivor refusing to collapse. Inside, the air smelled faintly of boiled potatoes, the last meal they could afford for the week. Liam's mother, Margaret Harwood, sat close to the small fire, rubbing her hands together. Her skin, once soft, was now rough, cracked from cold and hard work. Her hair escaped from under her scarf in graying strands. Across from her, his younger sister, Emily, hugged a thin blanket to her chest. She was merely 11, yet her eyes carried years of worry. "Mom, do you think Liam is warm enough?" Emily whispered. Margaret forced a smile she didn't feel. "Your brother is strong. And he knows how to take care of himself." But deep inside, she wondered if strength meant anything against snow and bullets. Emily reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded paper, the last letter Liam sent. She opened it carefully, hands trembling slightly as though the ink itself might melt away. "I'm thinking of home. Of the woods behind our house in autumn. Of Emily laughing as she runs through the leaves." She read the words slowly, eyes glistening. "I miss him," she said, voice cracking. Margaret gently touched her daughter's cheek. "He will come home to us. He promised." Promises were powerful. But promises did not stop winter from creeping under the door. The fire flickered weakly. Wood was scarce. Everything was scarce. In the marketplace earlier that day, Margaret had traded her wedding brooch, one of the last items of value she owned, for 3 small potatoes and half a loaf of hard bread. It had taken everything in her not to cry as she handed over the only piece of gold Liam's father had left behind before war took him too. Survival asked for sacrifices. Too many already. The wind howled outside like a beast enraged. Emily moved closer to her mother, laying her head against Margaret's arm. "I had a dream last night," she murmured. "Liam came home wearing a big coat and he lifted me into the air. He said he brought chocolate." Margaret smiled again, but tears slipped down her face before she could stop them. She wiped them quickly. "He will bring you chocolate," she whispered. Not because she believed it, but because Emily needed to believe it. The village streets had grown silent these past months. Shops that once smelled of fresh bread now displayed empty shelves. Windows of old cafes were boarded shut. People moved like ghosts wrapped in blankets and fear. Only the church bell still rang every Sunday morning, its chime thin and lonely in the frozen air. Father Benoit, the village priest, visited homes daily, delivering scraps of food donated by those who still had some left. He knocked on the Harwoods' door just after sundown. Margaret opened it, a swirl of cold pushing in behind him. "Good evening," he greeted with a soft nod, snow clinging to his shoulders. "I brought something for you." He handed her a cloth bundle. Inside were 2 onions and a small container of broth. A feast by current standards. She thanked him with trembling gratitude. "How are you both holding up?" he asked gently. "We're managing," Margaret replied, though her voice said otherwise. The priest's eyes drifted to the corner of the room, where a photograph of Liam stood on a small shelf. He picked it up, brushing snow from the frame. "He is a bright young man," Father Benoit said. "He carries hope even in his eyes." Margaret nodded. "He always tried to be strong for us." Emily chimed in, "He'll come home soon." The priest smiled warmly. "With faith, dear child, even the longest winter must end." As he placed the picture back, a loud crash sounded from outside, something falling nearby. Emily flinched. "Kids throwing rocks at the old shed again?" she asked. Father Benoit frowned. "No. That sounded heavier." Margaret stepped to the window and peeked through the frosted glass. Then her breath caught. A house down the road, roof collapsed under the weight of snow. A family rushed out into the night, crying for help. Without hesitation, the priest ran out to assist them. Margaret pulled on her boots. Stay here, she told Emily. No. I want to help too. Emily insisted. Margaret hesitated, but there was no time for argument. Stay close to me. They hurried into the storm. By the time they arrived, neighbors had already formed a desperate chain, passing tools, digging, shouting. The father of the household knelt in the snow, calling out a name over and over. Lena. Lena. His little girl, only 6 years old, was still inside. The collapsing roof had trapped her. Margaret rushed forward with others, helping to lift broken beams while the priest tried to calm the panicked father. Emily stood back, shaking in fear and cold. She folded her hands together, praying silently the way Liam had taught her. Minutes felt like hours. Then at last, someone shouted. I found her. A soldier in training who had returned home injured dragged the little girl out. Her face was pale, lips blue. She wasn't crying. She wasn't moving. The father wailed. Father Benoit pushed through the crowd, checking her pulse, pressing his ear to her chest. Nothing. No, the father sobbed, collapsing into the snow. The priest didn't give up. He started chest compressions. Come on, child, he begged. People watched, breath held, hearts pounding. One compress after another. Snow falling harder. Still nothing. Then suddenly. A gasp. A weak cough. The little girl opened her eyes. A collective cry of relief echoed through the village. Her father cried openly as he hugged her tighter than ever before. Emily began to cry as well, tears of fear, hope, and exhaustion mixing on her cheeks. Margaret knelt beside her, holding her tight. See? Even in the worst storm, miracles can happen. Emily nodded, wiping her eyes. But inside, Margaret felt terror clawing at her heart. If this could happen to a strong home. What of her own house? What of Liam, out there in a storm far worse? Later that night, after the rescue, the Harwoods returned home. The fire had nearly died, leaving the room bitterly cold. Margaret fed it the last small piece of wood she had. Flames returned, just barely. Emily crawled into her thin bed, hugging her blanket. She whispered, Mom, will there be food tomorrow? Margaret knelt beside her, brushing back her hair. I'll find something. I promise. Emily blinked sleepily. Can we write to Liam again? Yes, Margaret replied softly. Tomorrow, we will write. When Emily drifted off, Margaret remained awake, staring into the fire. She thought of Liam, his coat likely thinner than hers, his bed colder, his dangers greater. She tightened her hand around her scarf. Please, she whispered into the flames, bring my son home. Let this winter end. Outside, the wind howled louder, as if winter itself laughed at the plea. Meanwhile, miles away, Liam lay in a trench beneath the same moonless sky, clutching his letter, praying his family was safe. 2 worlds apart, but bound by the same storm. He didn't know his mother had cried tonight. He didn't know his sister narrowly escaped tragedy. He didn't know a prayer had been whispered for him. But he felt something. A tug in his chest. A warmth that wasn't from fire. He imagined Emily laughing in leaves again. He imagined his mother's cooking filling their little home. He imagined opening the door, alive. And though snow buried the world, hope refused to be buried inside him. The night before the march, the wind howled as if the sky itself was crying. Liam lay in the bunker, the thin blanket barely warming his trembling frame. Snowflakes drifted through the broken cracks above like cold, tiny ghosts. The lantern flickered, weak and exhausted, much like every soldier who rested beneath its faint circle of light. Orders had come, move north, deeper into the white wilderness where enemies lurked unseen beneath layers of snow and silence. No one questioned the command, but each heart sank with fear. This blizzard was not merely weather, it was a predator, starving for souls. Liam sat awake, staring at the letter Elise had helped him write. He dreamed of his mother's warm hearth, the sound of his sister humming while knitting scarves too long for him to wear comfortably. That memory alone gave him strength. Holding the letter to his chest, he whispered, "Let me go home, just once more." But war did not listen to prayers. The march into the white abyss. At dawn, the soldiers stepped out. The world was gone, erased by a storm so thick that even the sky had vanished. All that existed was endless white ground, white air, white death waiting patiently. Wind stabbed their faces like shards of ice. Snow piled on their shoulders as if trying to bury them while they still lived. The crunch of boots was the only proof they moved forward at all. "Keep close," the captain shouted through the blizzard, but his voice was carried away instantly, swallowed by the raging storm. Liam kept one hand on the coat of the soldier ahead. Without that anchor, he would drift like a lost leaf. The cold crept into his ribs, squeezing his lungs. Every breath was a battle. Hours passed, or maybe mere minutes. The blizzard turned time into a cruel riddle. Then, gunfire. Muffled flashes of orange burst through the white haze. Soldiers dove instinctively into the snow, though it offered little protection. The enemy was invisible, phantoms firing from nowhere. Liam returned fire blindly, heart racing. He could not see if he hit anyone, could not tell if they were advancing or retreating. The storm had made the war faceless. A loud blast shook the ground. Snow exploded around him. "Fall back. Regroup," a voice roared, he could not tell whose. Chaos without direction. And then? Liam was alone. Separated from hope. The snowstorm swallowed every sound. The silhouettes of his comrades drifted into nothing like candle smoke. Liam stumbled through the blank horizon, panic tightening around his heart. "Captain! Elise!" No answer. His voice dissolved into the storm. He called again, louder, yet even he could barely hear himself. Fear whispered. "This is how men vanish. This is where they sink beneath snow. And are never found again." He forced himself to keep moving, any direction, no matter how wrong. The cold grew sharper, needling through his bones. His muscles slowed. His eyelids felt like they carried metal weights. He paused to catch his breath, hands trembling violently. The world spun. Then darkness. The dream. Liam awoke not in snow, but in sunshine. He stood in his village, beside the old wooden fence outside his family's home. The smell of warm bread danced in the air. His mother waved from the doorway, smiling with eyes full of relief and love. "You're home," she whispered. His sister ran to him, scarf flapping behind her like a happy flag. She wrapped her arms around him, clinging like she would never let go. The air was warm. Birds sang. Flowers tilted their heads toward the gentle sunlight. Everything he ever wanted, right here. Elise stepped into view, her hands no longer stained by war. She looked at him as if he were the reason spring existed. "You kept your promise," she said softly. Liam felt tears warm his cheeks. For the first time in months, his heart was whole. But then, snowflakes began to fall. Just one at first. Then millions. They melted the village. They swallowed the sunlight. They turned the world white again. Liam reached out to his family, but his hands passed through them like mist. Their faces faded, voices twisting into a haunting winter wind. "Don't give up, don't let the cold take you back to the nightmare." He gasped sharply. The storm roared back into his ears. Still lying in the snow. Still freezing. Still alone. Shivering violently, he forced himself to move. Crawling first. Then stumbling upright. Every step was a war. The wind screamed. Snow stung. His heartbeat slowed, too slow. "Just sit, just rest, just close your eyes." A dangerous voice whispered in the back of his mind. He knew soldiers who had obeyed that voice, and never opened their eyes again. Through blurred vision, a faint light flickered far ahead. A lantern? A campfire? Or just another trick of the storm? He had one hope left. Move. He dragged one foot forward. Then another. The blizzard pushed back violently, as though guarding its frozen domain. He fought it, teeth gritted. But the cold was winning. His legs buckled again. He collapsed into the snow. His breaths came slower. The letter to his family slipped from his glove, fluttering like a lost bird. He tried to catch it. His fingers froze midair. A voice through the snow. Liam. Liam, can you hear me? He thought his mind was playing tricks again. Then. Light. Footsteps. A warm touch on his face. Elise, he whispered, unsure if it was real. Her face appeared above him, covered in frost and fear. She knelt, pulling him upright with desperate strength. Don't you dare sleep, she scolded, voice breaking. Not here. Not now. She slung his arm over her shoulder. Liam leaned all his weight against her, his final trust. Step by step, she dragged him through the storm. Toward warmth. Toward life. Toward hope he nearly lost. Shelter of thin safety. A hidden bunker door groaned open. Soldiers rushed to help, guiding Liam to a cot near a flickering stove. They wrapped him in coats, pressing heated stones against his limbs. His eyes fluttered, wavering between waking and dreaming. Elise stayed right beside him, gripping his hand tightly. You're safe, she murmured. You're with us. You're not alone. He looked at her through half-open eyes. Thank you, he breathed. She shook her head, fighting tears. No, Liam. Thank you, for not giving up. And then? Darkness again. But this time, he slept to survive. Not to die. The storm continues. Outside, the blizzard roared on, furious that one soul had escaped its icy grasp. But the night was far from over. The war was far from finished. The storm had buried hope once. It would try again. The world outside the bunker continued to rage in a white fury, but inside, a fragile sanctuary held its ground. The dim lanterns spread a small circle of warmth, just enough to prove that life still resisted the cold. The air smelled of smoke, damp coats, and desperation. Liam lay still on the cot, cocooned in blankets, his skin pale as the snow piling high above him. His breaths were shallow but steady, a sign that the cold had not claimed him yet. A medic checked his pulse every hour, whispering prayers beneath her breath. Elise remained beside him, refusing to rest. She had seen too many soldiers stop breathing in their sleep. She would not let Liam be one of them. A fragile awakening. After hours suspended between life and silence, Liam's fingers twitched. His eyelids fluttered open, revealing eyes heavy with frost and fatigue. The lantern glow blurred into gold halos. His voice was a hoarse breath. Elise. She leaned in, relief flooding her features. You're awake. Liam glanced around, struggling to place himself. We made it? Elise did, a nearby soldier replied with a grin. She hauled you through the snow like a sack of potatoes. A faint smile crept over Liam's lips. Elise cleared her throat sharply. You can thank me later. Right now you need rest. But Liam shook his head weakly, stubborn as ever. There's still a war out there. Still people depending on us. And you'll join them, Elise interrupted firmly, when your legs stop shaking like a newborn deer. Her tone was sharp, but her hand gently squeezed his. He felt warmth surge through that touch, fighting back the cold within him. Whispers of normalcy. Hours passed. Liam regained some strength. Elise forced him to sip broth so hot it steamed against his face, his first warm meal in days. He tasted salt, carrots, and perhaps a trace of hope. For a moment, he forgot the gunfire, the storm, the fear. For a moment, it felt almost like home. You risked your life for me, Liam said quietly. Elise shrugged. I just followed the lantern light. You would have done the same. Their eyes held each other's longer than necessary. Silence bloomed, soft, meaningful. Before either could speak again, the captain entered, arms crossed, Frost still clinging to his uniform. "Harwood," he said, voice stern but not unkind, "you gave us a scare. But you're not out of this yet. We need every able soldier ready to move when the storm clears." Liam nodded. "I'll be ready, sir." Elise's brows knit in worry, but she said nothing. Duty was a language every soldier understood, even when it broke their hearts. The storm shows no mercy. The next day brought no relief. Snow hammered the earth, sealing doors and swallowing sound. The temperature plunged lower, colder than anyone believed possible. The bunker creaked under the weight of ice. Supplies grew thinner. Some soldiers coughed violently, illness creeping in like a patient enemy. Liam forced his aching body to stand and help where he could, chopping firewood, checking ammunition, carrying buckets of melted snow for boiling. Each task reminded his nerves of the pain they had endured, but he refused to be useless. Elise scolded him every hour. "You're pushing too hard. And you're worrying too much," he replied. "I have every right to worry," she snapped back. Then, softer, "You almost died." Her voice trembled. Liam softened. "I'm still here," he whispered. The look they shared then said everything they didn't dare speak. Stories in the dark. That night, when the lanterns dimmed and most had fallen asleep, Liam and Elise sat near the stove. Fire's warmth painted a soft glow across their tired faces. "To stay awake," she explained, "so the cold doesn't steal another soldier." He knew that truth too well. Liam looked at her, curiosity nudging his voice. "What did you do before all this?" Elise took a moment to answer. "I studied medicine at a small academy. I wanted to help people. Never imagined I'd be helping them on battlefields." "What about your family?" "They're in the city. I receive letters sometimes. Enough to know they're surviving." She swallowed, eyes glimmering with loneliness. "But that's all I can ask from the world right now." Then she tilted her head, meeting his gaze. "And you, Liam? Why did you join?" He paused. "There was no choice. Our village. We barely had bread last winter. If I didn't enlist, my mother and sister would starve." He sighed, a quiet ache in his chest. "I thought maybe by fighting, I could buy them a better life." Elise smiled gently. "You're brave." He shook his head. "No. I'm just stubborn." "No," she insisted, touching his hand, "you fight for love. That is the greatest kind of bravery." Their hands remained joined, steady and warm. Hope found in a frozen world. Days passed. The storm finally began to ease, just enough for rays of sunlight to pierce through cracks in the icy walls. Soldiers emerged cautiously, shoveling pathways, preparing to move again. But something had changed. The men looked to Liam with newfound respect. He was the one who defied the storm. And Elise. She watched him with a quiet smile whenever she could. When no one else was looking. One evening, while checking his recovery, she placed a folded piece of paper into his palm. "What's this?" he asked. "A promise," she replied. "Don't open it yet." Her cheeks flushed a shy shade of pink. Before he could ask more, she walked away. Liam stared at the note, curiosity burning stronger than the stove fire. A mission to live for. The captain gathered them around a rough map. "We cannot stay here. The enemy controls the high ridge, we must reclaim it if we want any chance of advancing. We move at dawn." The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. Another battle. Another mountain of snow. Another risk of disappearing beneath it forever. Liam looked toward Elise. She nodded, expression steady, but her eyes begged him to survive. For her. Trust in the heartbeat. The hours before dawn slipped away quietly. Liam found Elise sitting alone, stitching torn uniforms. He approached her slowly. Elise. He hesitated, then asked, "May I open the note now?" She bit her lip, nervous and hopeful. "Yes." Liam unfolded the paper carefully. Inside, in her neat handwriting. "When the war ends, let's go home together." His breath caught. Emotion surged through him like warmth chasing away frost. He looked up, her eyes glistened with fragile courage. "I will," he promised. "With every heartbeat left in me. I will." Her smile was small but bright as a sunrise after an endless night. For the first time since the war began, Liam had something to look forward to. Something to fight for. Something to survive for. Someone. The first light of dawn. Morning arrived with a pale glow. The storm had weakened, though the air still bit like knives. Soldiers strapped gear to their backs, checked weapons, and prepared for what waited ahead. Before he joined the line, Liam turned to Elise. She took his freezing hands in hers. "Stay alive," she whispered, voice trembling. "I will come back," he swore, gripping her hands tighter. Her eyes held his, fear, hope, love unspoken but loud. When he stepped away, their fingers parted slowly, reluctantly, as though the touch alone kept the frost at bay. Heartbeats against the cold. Boots crunched on fresh snow as the soldiers marched toward the ridge. The blizzard had left deep scars upon the land, fallen trees, shattered shelters, and drifts as high as houses. But it had failed to bury their resolve. Liam pressed a hand against his coat pocket, the note tucked safely inside. He felt its promise like a fire in his chest. Beside him, the wind screamed, the earth creaked, and far-away artillery echoed its deadly drums. But Liam's soul refused to shake. His heart beat strong. Defiant. The cold would not take him. Not now. Not ever. He walked forward. Toward battle. Toward danger. Toward a future worth living for. Toward Elise. Snow fell softly that morning, too softly. Liam had learned that silence on a battlefield was not peace. It was the pause before the world tore itself apart again. The wind no longer screamed like the night before, instead, it whispered in eerie calm, as though holding its breath for fate to strike. He marched with the others through the half-light. The ridge ahead loomed like a frozen giant, sharp, white, unforgiving. Every step was a leap of faith. His fingers brushed over the folded note Elise had given him. "When the war ends, let's go home together." That promise burned inside him like a hidden sun. They reached the foothill trenches, long, dark scars in the snow. Officers signaled everyone to halt. Liam tightened his grip on his rifle, pulse accelerating. The captain pointed toward the ridge summit. "The enemy is dug in up there. Their snipers control the valley. We climb, we take that high ground, and we hold it. Understood?" A chorus of breaths, hoarse but determined, filled the frozen air. Liam nodded, jaw clenched. One more fight. Just survive one more. Climbing into fire. The ascent was brutal. Snow crumbled beneath boots, and jagged ice tore through gloves. The wind picked up again, sharp, slicing, relentless. Liam's breath crystallized instantly, clinging to his face like tiny daggers. Halfway up, gunfire cracked open the silence. Bullets snapped through the air. "Down," the captain shouted. Soldiers flattened into snow, hearts pounding against the frozen ground. Liam's ears rang as chunks of ice exploded inches away. The world became chaos again. The ridge turned into a deadly puzzle of rock and white as they scrambled upward, firing back whenever flashes revealed enemies hidden among the peaks. Liam spotted a sniper's muzzle glinting. He fired. A body slumped. But more took its place. Men slipped. Men fell. The mountain gave no mercy. Yet step by step, they climbed. Driven by fear. By duty. By the fragile hope of a tomorrow that felt too far away. Fire in the blizzard. A sudden explosion blasted snow into a blinding cloud. Liam's ears filled with a sharp ringing. His vision shook. Through the haze, shadows emerged. Enemies storming downward. Combat turned to close-range chaos, shouting, clashing, bodies wrestling on ice. Liam's rifle jammed. Without hesitation, he swung it as a club. A helmet cracked. A scream faded. Adrenaline flooded him. Then, a gun pressed to his chest. Liam froze. A shot fired. But not from the enemy. The man collapsed. Another soldier had saved Liam's life by an inch. Liam looked to the sky. Snow continued falling like the heavens were crying. I must survive. I promised Elise. He reloaded. He pushed forward. His boots finally reached the summit. Taking the ridge. The final defense shattered. The enemy retreated. Shouts of victory erupted, exhausted, desperate cheers. The ridge was theirs. But the price scattered behind them, motionless forms in blood-stained snow. Liam inhaled a trembling breath. Pain throbbed through his entire body. Harwood, the captain called. We set defenses here. Hold the line. Reinforcements are on the way. Liam nodded. He scanned the valley below, white plains stretching into nowhere. The war felt endless. Yet his heart clung to that letter. To Elise. For her, I will hold on. The enemy strikes again. They began fortifying positions, stacking crates, setting machine gun posts, calling wounded medics to shelter. Liam helped a soldier bandage a leg when a sudden, deafening roar shook the ridge. Artillery. Incoming, someone cried. A shell slammed into the ground yards away, earth and snow erupted. Liam was thrown backward, ears ringing violently. Smoke filled his lungs. Another blast. Then another. The enemy was counterattacking with everything they had left. The ridge turned hellish. Liam stood, stumbled, and grabbed his rifle. The world wavered. But he held firm. He fired into the chaos, heart pounding like thunder. Men around him fell, some screaming, some silent. We can't lose this ground. Not now. Not after all this. But the blizzard began to rise again, swirling snow into a blinding storm. The sky darkened, day turned to night in seconds. Gunfire faded into a distorted echo. The ridge became confusion and white death. A soldier crashed into Liam's shoulder. We need to fall back. No, Liam shouted over the storm. We hold the line. Something slammed into his side. Pain exploded through him. He dropped to his knees, breath stolen. A bullet. His glove pressed against his coat, warmth spread too fast. Blood. The world tilted. Sound stretched into muffled thuds. A final artillery blast thundered nearby. And the ridge vanished beneath a wave of snow. Liam fell. Tumbling into white silence. Snow-covered dreams. Darkness took hold, but not cold. This time, he awoke in sunlight again. He stood in a meadow, grass vibrant green beneath his feet. Flowers swayed. Birds soared high. No war. No pain. No fear. His family appeared, smiling, reaching. His mother wrapped him in her arms, soft and warm. His sister laughed, chasing butterflies. Elise stepped toward him. No bandages. No sorrow. Only hope. You kept your promise, she whispered, touching his cheek. Liam felt tears of joy. His heart brimmed with relief. I'm home, he breathed. Yes, Elise said, eyes shining. We're all safe now. He took her hand. The sun glowed brighter, filling the world with warmth. He had made it. He could finally rest. Reality calls from the cold. Liam. Liam, stay with me. The meadow flickered. Sunlight replaced by the harsh white glare of snow. Elise's voice burned through the haze. She knelt over him, tears freezing on her cheeks. Her hands pressed hard against his wound, red staining her gloves. "No," Liam murmured weakly. Her voice shook. "Don't close your eyes. Not again. I'm here. Just look at me." His vision blurred, her face fading in and out. "Elise," he whispered, forcing breath through frozen lungs, I'm sorry." "Don't you dare," she choked out, voice breaking. "You promised me we'd go home together. You promised." He reached slowly into his pocket, fingers trembling until he found it, the note. He pressed it into her hand. His last strength. "So you don't forget." Words crumbled weakly. She clutched his hand to her heart. "I will never forget you, Liam Harwood. Never." Under the falling snow. His body grew heavy, no pain now. Just quiet. The blizzard seemed softer. Snowflakes drifted gently onto his cheeks like tiny goodbyes. His eyes found Elise one last time. She was crying, but smiling too. Because she loved him. Because he loved her. Because despite the war, despite the cold, they found something warm in the frozen world. "Home," he whispered. And as snow settled over his chest, his heart gave its final beat. For the promise of home. Liam Harwood's war was over. The ridge holds. Reinforcements arrived hours later. The enemy retreated for good. The ridge remained under their flag, paid for in blood and hope. Elise refused to let the snow bury him. She held his hand even when life no longer warmed it. She kissed his forehead, voice trembling through tears. "You made it, Liam. You're free now." She placed the note, creased, cherished, over his heart. Then, gently, she closed his eyes. Winter did not end overnight. The war did not surrender easily. But slowly, quietly, change began. The blizzards weakened. The thunder of artillery faded. The sky no longer wept endless snow. And one morning, after months of silence, a single bird dared to sing from a bare tree. The sound was fragile, but it carried across the land like a prophecy. Spring is coming. A last farewell on the ridge. Elise remained on the ridge long after the battle had ended. Others buried the fallen with honor, giving each a grave marked by wooden crosses made from broken ammunition crates. She insisted on preparing Liam's grave herself. She brushed snow from his uniform one last time, tracing the shape of the dog tag that rested against his chest. Her hand lingered over where his heartbeat once lived. "You kept your promise," she whispered softly. She placed the note, creased and worn from battle, beneath his hands. His dream of home would travel with him forever. The captain approached. "We will notify his family," he said quietly. Elise nodded, wiping a tear quickly before it could freeze on her cheek. The soldier she had saved, the soldier who saved her heart, was gone. But she would carry him into every tomorrow she lived. A journey back to the living. When the war finally ended, surviving soldiers marched home, not to cheering crowds or parades, but to towns forever changed. Elise traveled with the medical corps as they returned through the countryside. Fields once scarred by trenches slowly thawed. Ice melted from rooftops. Sunlight crept back into windows long darkened by fear. People stepped outside cautiously, as though afraid peace might vanish if touched too quickly. She carried a single envelope close to her chest, addressed in Liam's handwriting. Its corners were frayed. Its ink faint. But its message remained alive. She had promised to deliver it. No matter how far. No matter how much it hurt. The village that waited. Weeks later, the bus rattled down a small road lined with budding trees, tiny green tips breaking through as winter surrendered at last. The village was quiet but not lifeless. Children chased each other around the well. Women hung laundry that fluttered freely in the new spring air. Elise saw a little girl chasing a stray cat. Dark hair. Bright eyes. She recognized her from the photograph Liam kept folded in his coat. "Emily," Elise whispered. The girl turned, curious. She stared at Elise's uniform, at the red cross stitched onto her sleeve. "You're a nurse," she said. Elise knelt. "Yes. My name is Elise. I knew someone very special from this village." Emily's eyes widened. "Do you know my brother? Liam?" The question hit like a crack in Elise's heart. Before she could speak, a woman hurried forward, worn but strong, face softened by hope and worry. "Emily, inside," she ordered gently. Then to Elise, "You came from the front?" Elise stood slowly. "Yes. I served with your son. Liam Harwood." The mother's hands trembled as she clutched her shawl. "He's coming home, isn't he?" Elise's breath hitched. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to say he survived. That he kept his promise. But the truth pressed tears into her eyes. She reached into her coat and placed the envelope into the mother's shaking hands. "He wrote this, for you and Emily." The mother stared at the letter as if it were made of gold. "Elise, where is my son?" A long silence held the three of them still. The world waiting for the truth. "He saved many lives," Elise said, voice soft as falling petals. "He was brave. And he had so much love in his heart." Emily's small voice broke the air. "He's not coming back, is he?" Elise knelt again, hugging the child gently. "He found peace," she whispered. "A place where winter can't hurt him anymore." The mother covered her mouth, silent tears falling, grief and pride intertwined. They stood together under a sky where spring fought back the cold. Liam's final letter. Later, inside their modest home, Elise sat with them as the mother opened the envelope carefully, like a fragile treasure. Liam's handwriting appeared, shaky yet full of warmth. "Dear Mom and Emily. If you are reading this, then I could not keep my promise to return. But please don't be sad. I want you to know I was never afraid. I fought for you. For our home. For every warm morning we dreamed of. Emily, you must grow strong and find laughter every day. Mom, I hope you never worry about me again. Because I am finally free. And I carry both of you in my heart, forever. With love. Your Liam." By the time the letter ended, there were tears in 3 pairs of eyes, but also a small, trembling smile. Liam hadn't died in despair. He had died in love. Hope that blossoms. The mother stood and hugged Elise tightly. "You were there with him," she said. "You made sure he wasn't alone." Elise's voice cracked. "He wasn't. And he spoke of home, every chance he could." They stepped outside into the sunlight. The breeze was warm. Birds chirped. Snow melted into soft earth where flowers would grow. Emily slipped her hand into Elise's. "Will you visit us again?" she asked. Elise smiled, genuinely, softly. "I would love to. Because this place, this tiny, hopeful corner of the world, was where Liam's dream still lived." A promise renewed. As Elise prepared to leave, she walked to the small hill behind the village. There, she knelt and pushed a tiny seed into the earth. Liam had once said he wanted to plant a garden when the war was over. "This one is for you," she whispered. She covered the seed gently, patting the soil. Then she looked to the sky, the winter clouds finally gone. Warm light brushed her face. "I will come back," she promised. "And when I do, there will be flowers." She stood tall, feeling the wind carry her words upward, as if delivering them straight to the ridge where Liam rested beneath the peaceful snow. The world after winter. Years later. The war became memory. The ridge became a memorial. And spring returned again and again. On the hill behind the village. A garden bloomed. Not grand. Not perfect. But beautiful. Children played there, chasing butterflies. Villagers left fresh flowers at a stone marker engraved with a name. Liam Harwood. A soldier who dreamed of home. Elise visited often. Each time, she laid a new white blossom, symbol of the snow that once tried to steal all hope. But the world refused to stay frozen. And so did she. Every year, the garden grew stronger. Just like her heart. The ending that Liam deserved. Though he never returned home in life. He lived in every sunrise. He lived in every green leaf. He lived in every warm embrace the winter could not destroy. His dreams survived. His love survived. Spring came at last. And stayed.